we have most of us on this panel finish the game. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Phillips. Join me today, and as what's your narration every single week. Pete Castore is here. Pete, how are you?
Doing well. Phenomenal game. I'm excited that I was able to finish it in time. I'm excited to talk to a couple of you at least about the story.
Yeah. Also with us here today, the High Republic droid who sent us on this wild adventure, Nick Brada, is here. Nick, how are you? Nick, his sound is not coming through.
It's not good.
Well, now I hear you.
Oh,
Yeah, I can hear him loud and clear.
You hear me?
now you
Yeah.
can. Now we can. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm doing great. About 1/3 into the game, so I'll be dropping off about 1/3 into this podcast while you guys discuss.
Yeah, Nick decides people inside baseball. Once Zelda came out, Nick pivoted hard to Zelda and said, "Screw the deadline. I'm going to do this. I'll do it without being spoiled." Then he said, "You know what? I don't want to be spoiled. I'll hop off."
Yeah, we have a Zelda podcast as well called the Hyrule Guys, and you can tune into that. So I'll send the link.
Nick?
Yeah, it's me and Nick Recovery Room here, and we're looking for a third member.
I would say, is that real? Because yeah, let's do it.
Jeez, wow, I thought we were good enough, man. What the hell?
Yeah. Also today, we hung out with a couple weeks ago. We did the first chapter of the game. Recovery Room Nick D'Alessio is here. Nick, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me back on the podcast. I'm excited to talk more Star Wars video games.
Yeah, absolutely here. And Pete, people like what they hear on the Sky Guys. They subscribe us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, all usual suspects. Simply search for the Sky Guys favorite podcast platform for episodes there. We gave the Justin and Suffering folks a feed drop last week of the movie episode, but now you want stuff until the Ahsoka preview. You gotta be back on with us.
100%. You need to be subscribed to get all this exclusive content, and subscribe to the Recovery Room on Twitch. All right, long supporter and collaborator of the Sky Guys group here. So definitely give him a follow as well.
Yep. Nick, people that follow us on social media aren't going to do that. His audio is cutting out again. I don't know why, but.
So Mike, just a little background for everyone. I hear him perfectly fine. I don't know if that's something going on with your feed or not, Mike.
His recovery room, Nick, did you hear him?
No, I didn't hear him either.
Now I got you again.
Well, I'm not sure what to do then.
Well, you can tell us again.
You gotta say it now, real quick. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's at Sky Guys Podcast. It's on Twitter, it's on Instagram, and now on TikTok.
Yep, we now need TikTok. So, recovery room, Nick, if you are on TikTok, you should follow Sky Guys Podcast on TikTok.
I'm not, but I will. I might do that just to follow you guys on TikTok.
Yeah, a lot of fun on there as well. And you can also check out the YouTube page, Mike Phillips on YouTube, with the video version, with the graphics, my fun background, the Mantis, all our props, all the fun stuff as always, Nick.
Is that me or...
Yeah, recovery room, Nick.
Okay.
Nick confusion for about like 5 minutes.
I was gonna say a third of the way through we won't be confused anymore. Yeah, no, I listen mostly on Spotify, as you guys know, but anytime I can see the YouTube with all the fun stuff added, it's always worth it.
Absolutely here. So let's do some Star Wars news because Nick Frey, it's been a minute since we did Star Wars news, and there's been a lot happening.
It has.
Yep.
Did you hear me?
Yes.
All right, maybe I think maybe going on and off mute, maybe causing the issues. I'm going to stay off mute. Yeah. Also, I'm going to be talking a lot here, so I don't need to mute anyway. But for Star Wars news, the first thing I got is the Ahsoka show on Disney Plus had a little teaser trailer thing come out. And the show got a release date. That release date is August 23rd.
Yep, so August 23rd, Ahsoka comes out here, and we have 8 episodes here right now. So recovery room, Nick, you excited to see the show?
I am almost, I think, more excited for this than I am for Andor Season 2, and I'm really excited for Andor Season 2. But, I way recently... I thought I always watched Rebels, but it turns out I was confusing Rebels and Clone Wars a lot. So I recently watched Rebels, so I'm ready for more Ahsoka.
Yeah, Nick Frey, I'm excited to get this show. The teaser clip we got, I thought it was very fun.
Yeah, and the show looks awesome. It's Rebels Season 5. It's a lot of great characters. Looks like there's going to be some Thrawn in there, at least a little bit. Can't wait.
Yep. What's next on the news department?
So there's actually another piece of news that you don't have listed, Mike, on our little rundown. Spoiler alert, we have a little rundown, but I found this news, and that is the budget for Andor was leaked, and apparently It was $250 million. Now, we don't know if that's both seasons or just season one, but
I'm aware it's just season one.
you know that?
Yeah, it was in an article I sent in our group chat, but I did not put it in the rundown. I didn't know we discuss that.
Okay, yeah, so that's a lot. That's $20 million an episode.
Yeah, which is
a
insane.
lot of money.
It's like, yeah, Nick, like recovery room, Nick. How do you feel about like the budget being that bad? I think it showed in how well that show was produced.
I mean, it looked really good. There were points of it where it didn't look like a show; it looked like a movie. So that makes sense that they had that kind of budget for it.
Yeah, and I mean, Nick Fried. I mean, like whether it's the Aldani heist or whether it was, like the prison break episode, they had so many like stuff that just looked really, really crisp.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money. I don't know if they're going to do that again for season 2 or more. I don't really know how that stuff works, but either way, I'm excited for season 2. It's some of the best content we've ever gotten in Star Wars.
Yep. What else? You want to keep going on the news here?
Yeah. Mark Hamill has said he is done playing Luke Skywalker. They do not need Luke anymore. That's his quote.
Yeah. So, Pete, are you at all surprised that Luke Skywalker has opted to retire from being Mark Hamill? Mark Hamill's retired from being Luke Skywalker.
I like it the other way around. I feel like he should just be Luke Skywalker. I think after the sequel trilogy, I think he had some choice words about it. And I saw him in like the promotion for Jedi Survivor 2. He wasn't playing the character, but obviously Mark Hamill's Mark Hamill. I think it's time. I think we should be away from that time period anyway. We spoke about it a bunch of times on the podcast, so I'm not terribly surprised. And good on Mark Hamill to say, I'd like to be doing my own thing. Maybe not reprising the role so many times now.
Yeah, Nick D. This is something we talk about on the podcast a lot here. Like, if they want to use the character, can we just recast him with a younger actor? I'm sure Mark Hamill will not be offended. I mean,
if you're going through all that technology to change his face and to do all that stuff anyway, then like, why not? Like, I mean, it's not like I don't know. There's a lot of Luke that we don't know what he looks like. Like we seen him in his like 20s, and then we see him, in the sequel trilogy. There's a lot of time like he could look a little different. It's not like it's gonna. I don't think fans will be upset where they're like, wait a second, that's not Mark Hamill.
Not my Star Wars, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, people got over Obi-Wan change eventually, right? Now the new Obi-Wan is the real Obi-Wan. So I mean, people can change.
All right, Nick Fried, what else do you got in the news department?
The KOTOR reboot is still in production. I don't think it was ever out of production. I think it just got a little quiet for a while, but we got confirmation they're still making it.
Yeah, it's just a clarification here. Like, through the company that's making it, they released an investors sheet, like an earnings sheet to investors listing what they had, and that game was still listed as in active development. So they are still working on it, but we still have no idea when the hell this would come out or if it's actually going to make it through the production process.
Did they ever cancel it, or did they just say like it's on? They're putting it on the shelf for a little bit.
They basically said like there was a rumor it was canceled, and they said no, it's not canceled. They basically hadn't heard anything since, and now we know they're still working on it.
Yeah, just quiet about it, but that's all right. Next is, I hope I don't butcher the name because this name always kills me. Idris Elba.
Idris.
Damn it. I can never get it. If I say Idris, it's Idris. If I say Idris, it's Idris. I swear, it goes back and forth.
No, it's Idris.
Well, he is a rumor to be the villain in the new Rey movie. He's also the rumor to be the next James Bond, but we'll see about that.
I mean, we saw him in the Suicide Squad. Pete, we've seen him as Knuckles in Sonic the Hedgehog too. So I mean, like, he's a a lot of range for Idris Elba.
I like Idris Elba. I think he would be a phenomenal villain in Star Wars. He'd be a phenomenal protagonist in Star Wars. So I like the casting. I hope the writing is good enough to back up his character, though. I hope he doesn't kind of fall into the Star Wars trap as of late when it comes to the storyline and writing for characters.
Yeah, that's for sure here. Nick, couple more news items for you.
Yeah. I guess lastly, no. There's one more I forgot about here. The game Star Wars Outlaws was revealed. That's that Ubisoft open world game we've been hearing about for so long. It was unveiled during the Xbox showcase, I believe, on Sunday. And we got to see a little more of the game, a little bit of a trailer. We got to see a little bit of a gameplay demo as well, and that's it. It's an open world Star Wars game, and it's coming.
Nick D, I know you have thoughts like that Ubisoft's the one making this game.
I saw Star Wars game and open world, and I was like, here we go, baby. And then Ubisoft, and I was like, man, I wish anybody but Ubisoft was making it. I'm just afraid that they're gonna turn it into, I don't know, just microtransaction heaven, and like, you know, all these weird DLC things, and you have to have a Ubisoft account to use it, and just, I don't know.
They will.
Ubisoft has, like, they are so responsible for the open world genre, and they've done a ton with it. And then they did that one thing over and over and over and over again. So I'm hoping they try to break the mold a little bit with this one, but I don't feel very confident until we see a little bit more.
Pete, what was your reaction to the trailer of the game?
Inconclusive. I don't think we saw much. I'm gonna call it. I think this is gonna be a Ghost Recon reskin. It's gonna be Ghost Recon Wildlands, just reskin to Star Wars. I agree with Recovery Room Nick that this is gonna be microtransaction heaven when it comes to cosmetics, and they probably will add a battle royale to it, because God forbid any game doesn't have a battle royale. And it'll come out broken. So those are my hot takes. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. But really excited for Assassin's Creed. Speaking of Ubisoft, not Star Wars, just threw it out there. But anyway,
I remember a time when all of these games that they made were so high on the list. Like, everyone loved Assassin's Creed, Far Cry. Everyone loved all the Tom Clancy games, Watch Dogs, and now they're just like the enemy. It shows what they've done to their games.
Yeah, that's for sure here. I will also point out that the casual audience seems to be not thrilled that we have a female protagonist in this game.
Is that a thing? I haven't seen that. People are not happy about that?
Nick D, I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. Who cares? You know, like yeah, there can be a good female lead character in a Star Wars property, and people can just be okay with that, you know.
It does seem like there is a push that everything seems to be a female lead nowadays, but I don't care. If they're good, who cares? I don't care what they are. If they're good, if they're bad, I don't mind at all.
You know, there's a certain demographic we're not getting into that seems to be very upset whenever we have female-led. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. So, Nick, you want to wrap up the news section here?
Yep. Lastly, is due to this writer's strike that we've all been talking about so much, those movies that were supposed to be December 25, 26, and 27, the second two are still going to be December 26 and 27, but the first one is now going to be May 22nd to 2026, so pushed back about 5 months there. I'm just going to say it now. I've said it before. These are not going to be the dates they come out. I am fairly confident. If I had to take a guess, so you can put it on record, the first will come December 26, then there'll be one December 27, and then the later one will be December 28.
Yeah, my concern, Pete, with the Molly, I agree with Nick that they're not going to stick to these dates, and I feel like there's going to be production issues and whatnot, because, I mean, there's still potential an actor's strike here that could be happening at the end of the month. We don't know that yet, but I will say I do not like the idea of doing 3 movies in about 18 months when they had trouble getting one right for 7 years.
I mean, I'm not sure why they would do that. Didn't they ramp down production of Disney Plus and anything related, content related, coming out in general, because they felt like they were doing it too quickly. I'll believe when I see it. Like Nick said, I don't think those are going to be release dates. It might be earlier, it might be later, so I wouldn't take those to heart. I'll have to see how the product is. Maybe the product's good. Who knows? Maybe this extra time will spark some idea and allow them to take some time to create a better organizational structure, so that when the writers do come back, you know, that they have a better starting ground to it, right? A better starting point. Excuse me. So, we'll have to see. I think everything we're going to say about this is going to be all speculation, right? So. Yeah,
so Nick, is that it for the news?
That is. I just one thing I wanted to mention was the game, the Star Wars Outlaws game, is using the same engine that was used in the Tom Clancy The Division. So if you played The Division, you can use the same engine. The game can be very different, so don't let that mean anything. Like, for example, for our listeners to the Hyrule guys, the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are very different games, and they use the same engine, so it really kind of means nothing.
Honestly, that makes me feel a little better about it, because The Division was a game that was pretty broken at launch and got better over time. So if they're using a different iteration of it. Maybe. I know, Pete, you don't look like you're very happy about it, but like it could be, that could bode well for it, possibly.
Even with the same engine, it happens all the time. They have a second one, a third one, and for some reason it's broken or it sucks. And it's like, well, you did this already. What'd you do? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or if you fixed it already, why are you breaking it again? So, look. It's nothing against Ubisoft. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors there. They make some good content as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. That's it for the news, Nick.
Yeah, and you will see me next week. No, I'm kidding. I am going to go, though.
Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, well, Pete and I will talk about the end of the podcast. We're going to be doing a lot of Ahsoka stuff starting next week. So we'll be talking about Ahsoka stuff, getting ready for that show coming up the next month and a half or so.
Yeah, so I'm out of here.
All right. Nick is signing off, so now we are down to one Nick on the podcast.
See you on the Hyrule, guys.
Yep. Nick is going to go record the Hyrule guys right now while we're doing this, so he's going to go do that. And we're going to get into the video game here because Nick did not finish. Pete and I did, along with recovering. Nick finished what? You want to say about like 3 weeks before I did?
Yeah, probably about 3 weeks ago, give or take.
All right, so let's talk about this video game here, the Jedi Survivor. General thoughts here from the guy. So Pete, as somebody who played the game and finished the main story mode, how did you feel about the gameplay experience?
I really liked it. I think it was a really, really good game. I don't think it was a good game at the price point. I think with the amount of content, if you don't do the open world stuff, you don't really get a lot of hours of content versus the $70 price point. So I would suggest to the listeners to possibly wait to get it on sale somewhere, whether that be physical copy or digital. Didn't have many technical problems on Xbox. That's where I played it on the Series X. Had a lot of game crashes. Ironically enough, those game crashes came during cutscenes, not actually when I was playing. So it wasn't like frames were getting jumbled and overloaded, and that's why it crashed. It was all during the cutscenes after I had finished something. So overall, performance of the game ran very well. Price point was a little high for what I did in the game. The open world stuff was not as inviting as I thought it'd be. My opinion might be a little skewed there because I was just trying to play it to beat it for the deadline here. But the story and the gameplay overall is a fantastic Star Wars game.
Yeah, I was the recovery room, Nick. You went through it first, and like you've got a lot more closer to completing 100ing it like than I had or Pete had. So like, what do you think about the gameplay as a whole?
Yeah. So I was playing it on PS5. And it ran great except for the one time it didn't, and I had a really bad crash and I corrupted save file and I lost a lot of progress. But that aside, no, I thought it was incredible. I thought it was really good. I think they took all the things that worked in the first game and added to it. I think the story was better this time around. It felt more Star Wars and less just like video gamey, if that makes any sense. Fallen Order was very video game, like get this, now do this, and then this felt more I guess like a storyline. As far as the openness of it, I mean, there's Kobo, which we'll probably talk about a little bit, which is like a really open kind of hub area, and then everything else was the standard kind of slightly branching paths lines. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than the first one. Yeah, I would recommend it. Anybody who likes Star Wars and these types of games, like, go play it.
Yeah, I think in terms of like Kobo, Jedda's pretty big also, Nick, I'll say. Jeddah, you can do a lot if you want to.
Yeah, that's true. You can, once the second time around, the first time around, you're kind of stuck, but then the second time around, you can really explore around. Yeah,
because the first time around, the sprite is trying to kill you every time you step on the ground, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like that, and I do think if you go back to the Knights of the Republic deal with like the NPCs and like following off the side quests, a lot of that fun stuff is in here. I do think like in terms of like this, we know the Coder reboot early in the show. I feel like if you are taking sort of the idea here, I think like the Jedi Survivor model would work with the Coder reboot if you use the fight mechanics from that with the sort of open worldness that they had.
Yeah, I don't think the KOTOR battle system ages well. You know,
I think this battle system would be a better fit with the storyline. Yeah,
you would have to adapt it into similar to this, maybe a little bit more actiony, but yeah, this similar to this.
All right, so we went through chapter 1 the last time we were here. So we'll pick up the storyline here from so Pete. We get to Kobo next, and we spent a lot of time on Kobo, our favorite planet in this game. So, did you enjoy your time on Kobo?
I did. It was limited. Like I said, the open world in Kobo didn't grab my attention really that much. Getting the fish for the aquarium in the saloon, or I don't know. Kobo was good for when we had missions on Kobo for me. Again, I may not have been as open-minded to it because I was trying to meet a deadline just by playing the story and kind of immersing myself in that story. I didn't feel the need like I need to do anything outside the main story because it's not like it had like gear levels or anything like that to get the next story mission you should be a certain gear level, so it's a little easier, so you kind of grind a little bit. Kobo's cool. It's a cool planet. I like it for the main missions. And that was pretty much it for me.
So you're not a guy who's going back to Pyloons every time and talking to the people who are hanging out there.
No, waste of time for me. I mean, look, there is a market for it. I like open world games. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, open world game, RPG style. I did every side mission I could. I tried my best to do everything in that game. Even if I didn't have a deadline for this game, I just felt like there was nothing that I got in return by doing a side mission or a rumor. It just felt like not a waste of time to me, but it was almost guided open world, right? You were on so many different planets. You had to go so many different planets. It just didn't appeal to me. And I'm not against open world games. I like open world games with that side mission stuff. So to me, the game kind of fell short on that front.
Nick, what do you feel about the side missions? I feel like every time I would go into new conversation, go talk to everybody. Like, we get the storylines out, like all the NPCs, like or Grok, R.I.P. Grok. So all that fun stuff. So I mean, I did think like opening up the rumors is fun, and like I had stuff like in mind. Like after I finished the main story, I'm going back trying to close up some of these rumors, see what's going on with these things.
Yeah, so I mean that's like that appeals to me. Like I want that. I want to, like a Mass Effect. Like every time you go back to the ship, I want to talk to every single person and hear what they've been up to. I think Pete, I think you need to apologize to Turgle because Turgle is the best character, the best NPC in any Star Wars game ever. So, also Scuba Stev. As soon as it was like Scuba Stev and he catches fish, I'm like, is that like Scuba Steve? Is that a joke? Is that what, I like Kobo for that reason, because the first time I went through Kobo, I did the thing that I always do, and I'm like, I'm going to go everywhere else except for where the game wants me to go, and eventually you hit areas like, I got to come back here later, but so I kind of did that first, so then every time I returned, it was streamlined. I was like, here's a rumor here, I'm going to talk to these people, see what they got to say, buy a few things, and then on the way, and I liked that rhythm of it.
Yeah, so some of the things that Cal finds on Kobo, because like he meets up with Grease at his saloon. Grease has it's your secret tunnel by saloon you can explore, and he goes and finds this droid ZP who is from the High Republic era, which I know this has been a project Star Wars is doing in terms of multimedia, whether it's like comic books, graphic novels. I know that the kids show with Yoda teaching younglings is in that era, but were you surprised to run into High Republic stuff in this game?
I was not surprised based on the storyline that we were getting. I think it's cool. I'm glad that we're doing something other than, R2-D2 rolling in. Like it's a new droid. It's from the High Republic. So I thought it was cool. I wouldn't say I was super shocked or super surprised, but it was definitely a nice element to add to the game.
Nick, were you familiar with the High Republic stuff before you ran into the droid?
Somewhat. I mean, I'm familiar with I don't know what's canon anymore or not. I guess KOTOR and some extended Legends stuff now, like a little bit. No, before running to droid, I was actually, you're saying, at least it wasn't something that gets rehashed. I was actually so excited when you saw the first battle droid. I was like, what? They're in this? And then the first one you force push off of a ledge and he's like, no. I was like, oh man, they got the voice acting in it too. Like, I was super stoked about that.
Yeah, that was great. We do find out when we sent him on a mission here. We run into this group, Nick, the Bedlam Raiders, who basically are your like enemy force on Kobo. They have repurposed those battle droids to serve them, and I think like honestly, they are the most annoying grunts I've run into any video games. Like 16 versions of them. They get stronger as you go, and like I was playing on the Jedi Padawan level, was I think like the lowest level is, but that's not story mode, and like they were still kicking my ass a lot of the time.
That's also the introduction to Ravis is with the Bedlam Raiders. He's rolling with them.
Yeah. So Pete, what do you think about Ravis here, who is the leader of the Bedlam Raiders?
I think he's pretty cool. Kind of gave me Halo vibes, almost like the Arbiter a little bit. Obviously, totally different, but like it gave me those vibes. Yeah, it was super cool villain, if you will. We'll talk about his little twist at the end there. But I enjoyed it. I think it was good.
Yeah, Nick, I think on the internet people call him Star Wars Thanos.
Yeah, because he kind of looked like a Star Wars Thanos. Actually, I looked into it a little bit because I've never. He's a race called a Jedi, a Gendai.
I think it's Gendai.
Gendai. Nick's not here, so I have to take over as the and apparently like their whole deal is like later on. I mean, it's Star Wars, so obviously limbs get cut off. He has the ability to regenerate his tissue, and the reason he wears that crazy heavy armor is because it literally contains like their body and gives them upgrades. But yeah, he definitely felt. I thought the same thing, Pete. I was like, is this like a Halo 4 villain or something? Like, but he kind of. I like Ravis as the villain, one of the villains. I don't. For some reason, I just never saw him rolling with the Raiders. Like, it kind of felt like two completely different, Which, I mean, there's a reason why, I suppose, but I didn't really see the two of them mixing well.
Yeah, that's for sure. We also get a lot here. We see that one of the missions that like Z sends Cal on, like, oh, like I was delivering this disc for my master. Can you take care of it for me? So like he goes, he's exploring Kobo, he finds these High Republic ruins, and we find a Jedi in a back to tank, and he's been there apparently for a very long time. And Pete, did you think it was a good idea from Cal? It's like, oh, I'll just open the back to tank, let this guy with one arm out, and see what's up.
I knew something was coming. Back to tanks. It's a sore subject for me after Book of Boba Fett. But it's a great way to introduce a character that, is whatever 1,000 years old or whatever the case may be. It's a way to do it. Not a great idea to do it, but it's a video game, so we need some sort of conflict. So, not surprised. Super cool way to do it.
Yeah. So Nick, the theory is he finds this Jedi in the back to tank. He's like, oh, I need help to beat the Empire. Let me get this guy to help me. And then he thaws out this guy named Dakin Gera who has one arm, and then that Dakin Gera basically's gone insane, and we see him basically bleed his kyber crystal alive, and you see he's a dark Jedi immediately, and you're like, uh-oh, what did I just do?
Yeah, that was cool because I think I'm not sure. Nick's not here, so I don't know if you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've ever seen a kyber crystal get turned like bled like that, because like that's how it turns red. But I don't know if we've ever seen it happen.
I don't think so.
I also thought it was really cool. Cal uses his ability to see that vision of what we know is Tanalorr and it being invaded by, what is it, the Nihil or something. And then he turns and looks at Cal and he's like, you're not supposed to be here. I was like, oh, that's cool. He can like see, he's that in tune with the Force. He can see through all that. Yeah, as soon as he gets let out and he's like, what happened? Like the Jedi Council fell, blah, blah, blah. You could just tell he was going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to side with you. I'm going to be the enemy now. You kind of just knew that was coming.
Yeah, Pete, we run the Dagon a few times in this game as sort of like, he's sort of like our figurehead villain. We don't find out the real villain until the end of the game. So like, what did you feel about like dealing with Dagon in terms of like what it was like to fight him?
He seemed like a brat. Like, just his character just seemed like he didn't get what he wanted, so he just freaked out and he said, I'm gonna use my lightsaber in the Force. Like, his story's good, right? I understand his story. I understand why it's happening. I understand why you're fighting him in the video game. I'm not naive to that. However, when you really look at the character, it just seems very Anakin Skywalker-esque. Like, the council wouldn't listen to me, so I'm going to do it on my own and become a Sith. It was just like, I've seen this before. I've seen this before. I've heard this before. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's literally the whole opening trilogy, prequel trilogy of this. So this franchise. So I think he's a great character to play against. I think it's a great character to show what the antagonist is trying to do. Both antagonists. We'll get into that a little bit later. And he was good. again, it seemed a little bit refreshed from what we've known, but I was okay with it.
Yeah, and we do find out from him, Nick, that like he has found the secret planet called Tanalor, which is apparently it's in like another part of the galaxy. It's like almost impossible to reach by standard means. And Cal immediately has his thought in mind, it's like, oh, we can hide from the Empire here, and we can, get people be safe here, and the Empire can't reach us on this planet. We can sort of fix the Jedi Order, do all the fun things on Tanalor. So the main thrust of the game's point becomes, let's find a way to get to Tanalor any way possible.
Yeah, let's find a way to get to Tanalor any way possible, and let's also stop this guy from getting to Tanalor first, because if he gets a hold of it first, there is a Jedi temple there, so who knows what he could possibly awaken there. And if we find out also that Ravis is working for him, because after you fight him, Ravis comes and scoops him up, and he's like, come on. And Dagon's like, my friend Ravis. So you're like, okay, there's a history there too. So you don't want that guy building an army there as well. So
yeah, and it's just set in motion here. Interesting point here, Nick, because we talked about when we started the game here that like Cal is the man in BD, but the rest of the crew is not there. So you want to kind of catch up what everybody's been doing in between the two games?
Yeah, so I guess they don't really explain how the group broke up, but it's kind of implied as you're going through. Because obviously we meet Grease. He's running the Pyloon Saloon. He's on Kobo. The next plot point is we're going to go to Seer because she is on Jeddah, with somebody from the last game who we didn't know was alive, but turns out they are. I'm saying spoiler alert as if this isn't a podcast that we're talking about the events of the game. So Seer is there kind of rebuilding the Jedi archives. She's also, which is actually a cool reveal, Sears has a heavy role in the Path, which got introduced during Obi-Wan. So that's cool that there's that connection there. And then Merrin wanted to travel the world and find herself, and she's kind of grown into a stronger version of herself, and she's also on Jeddah at that point too. And that's kind of where everybody reconnects.
Yeah, Pete, they don't give us the clear black and white explanation of like what happened with that crew, but the sense we get here is that Cal basically was like grinding his head against the wall. It's like, I gotta fight the Empire, and they said, like, we don't all have to go along with this. We're gonna do our own thing. So that's sort of the reason, like, okay, we'll give you the ship and BD will stay with you, but like we don't have to be along for like a suicide mission.
Yeah, and I think it's the way they do it is perfect. We were talking off the podcast. There's a book that apparently explains the events between the two games. So if we want to recommend that book to the listeners, you have the title. But before you do that, I think they did it right. I don't think we need to have a full-blown explanation about where everyone was. There was regular time between the games.
5 years.
Yeah, so... Well, I'm talking about did they also take 5 years to release each game in our time, not canonically?
Yeah, I think Lily was 2018 and 2023, so Lily's
right.
5.
So, right, but it's also 5 years in the game as well. It just worked out that way, correct?
Yeah, it did, because in the game, I think we're basically right around where Kenobi happens.
Okay, so canonically and also in our lifetime, it's 5 year difference. We're supposed to be Cal. We don't know what they were doing while we weren't around. So I think it's organic, and I think they did a nice job at making it known, hey, we weren't together, but we're back, and, we'll give you little snippets about it before, we get into the game.
Yeah, and we obviously Grease, he's hanging out in his saloon. We recruit him really quick, Nick. He's back with us. He's flying the ship the rest of the game. But we get to Jeddah. Merrin finds us brings us to Sears. So a fun surprise here that Master Cordova, who is a hologram in the first game, he's still a real person. He's hanging out helping Seer rebuild the Jedi archives. Yeah,
and I saw him, and as soon as he's on the screen, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. No one ever said he was dead. right he like left all these like cryptic like puzzles for us in the first game, and I guess it's kind of, you would assume that he's dead, but you walk into the room and BD starts going crazy like a little puppy dog, and you're like, what's going on? And he runs right up to Cordova, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, he's alive. That makes, I guess so, right? Like, why not? Also, I guess something that we missed out a little bit in that 5 year gap. We touched upon it in the first episode, but Cal was also working with Saw Gerrera, and Saw Gerrera has a tendency to be very polarizing and split people up. So it would also make sense that if Seer wants to focus on her Jedi skills, and Marin wants to follow the world. Doing crazy missions for Saw Gerrera isn't appealing if that's the route you want to go. So.
And P, I do think in terms of like canon to the shows right now and the live action stuff, the reveal that Seer and Cordova are with the Path and helping to rescue the Jedi, like the Jedi who survived Order 66, I think that's a lot of fun. I do think they thread that needle very nicely in the game.
They did. It's in the same time frame. It makes sense. And it kind of makes me wonder if we're going to see them in live action Star Wars at some point, if they continue to do that time period, if there's an Obi-Wan 2 or something like that.
Well, we may not see them concerning again in the game, but like we could see the Path more.
Yeah, well, we could figure it out.
Yeah. Nick, were you surprised we get something like a Roken in this game as sort of like here's a random character where you can contact him once or something like that?
No, because I mean, even in the first game, short of the Darth Vader reveal, there wasn't really anybody from the main series in that one as well. I think they're very good at like hinting towards the bigger picture of what's going on, but keeping it relatively contained in these things. So I didn't know who we were gonna get, but I wasn't expecting anybody from the movies, I guess. Maybe I was expecting maybe like a random character from like one of the animated shows, but we got the droids, so
yeah, the droids. So I'm gonna sort of like a lot of the game, the middle part of the game, I think is sort of like a lot. We're chasing Dagon around, we're going for Lees to Tanalorr. Like, not gonna waste our time going through all that. So we'll jump to the big twist in the game here, which is obviously the big spoiler here, which Ricardo and Nick hinted it to us when we were doing the stream here
by accident.
So, P, I'll guess you when you get to this far. Like, when we beat Dagon on like the third time, we finally kill him, and we get this thing. Did you sort of think the game was over at that point?
No, it was too early. I knew something was happening, and I also knew that this particular character had something going on.
Yeah, so anyway, we get back to Jeddah. We go to Seer and Cordova, and basically Cal said, great, we can go to Tanalorr. We'll bring the Path there. Everybody's safe. And then all of a sudden, our pal Bode, who's been basically riding shotgun with the entire game, kills Cordova, steals the compass, runs away, and Nick, the big reveal here is that Bode is a secret Jedi who, too bad Nick's not here for this, that he's another Jedi survived Order 66. So
yeah,
add him to the bingo card, and then we can talk about how like he basically has been working for the Empire as a spy and was embedded in Cal's crew to track their progress and get the Seer. So what did you think when you first saw this twist?
So it's funny because that's the point where my game crashed and I lost a lot of my save point, so I had to go back a lot. And the game really did a good job of leaving little breadcrumbs that like Bode was always just a little bit off, and like, but you kind of look at it as like, oh, he's looking out for his daughter. That's his whole motivation. He's like, I lost my wife. My daughter's the only thing that matters to me. So I kind of you kind of saw the turn coming. That wasn't the surprise in it. The surprise was he turns heel, you chase him, and then he force pushes you away, and he pulls out a red lightsaber, and you're like, oh, he's a Jedi. Oh shit, that part actually got me. The reveal. You can the whole thing is on YouTube. You can see the reaction. I was like, I knew it, and then that scene happened, and I was like, I didn't see that coming. Like that was pretty cool. And also, did you notice the lightsaber he's using was Dagon's lightsaber? Because when you're in the observatory and you kill Dagon, he hangs out for a little bit, and he's like, I'm going to see if I could find a manual on this compass or something. And I was like, that's weird. Why would he hang it back? He took the lightsaber at that point, and then he had that with him because he knew once the compass was in their possession, he knew what he was going to do next.
Yeah. So Pete, what was your reaction to the Bode reveal?
Didn't know he was going to be a Jedi. I knew he was going to betray them at some point. It just seemed too obvious. It was one of those video game twists, and when the main storyline ended within 15 hours of gameplay, I was like, "There's no way. If this game's this short, then this is a ripoff." I have to say, like I said, him being a Jedi is cool. I think I didn't see that coming at all, and I think it works. I think it works really well for this storyline.
Yeah, I also love the fact this character, Nick, you can tell like he has his mission to protect Kana, but like you can tell like he is really bonding with Cal throughout the game, and like he is conflicted about what he has to do. Where like he says at the end of the game, like if we were just gonna go together, that would have been great because I would have just taken Kyle. We would have said screw the Empire and left. But like when you wanted to bring the whole path along, you said like more eyes means more chances getting exposed, and I didn't want to risk my daughter.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it too, because you could that hurt Cal. You know, when that whole betrayal happened, like it wasn't just like, oh man, here's this random guy. Like, no, like Cal felt that, and when you eventually confront Bode, because he still has that tracker on him that you gave him in the beginning of the game. When you finally confront him and Cal's talking to Kata, Bode walks in and he's like, "This is my best friend Cal," and like, you're like, he meant that a little bit, you know, like, yeah, it's a thing that I think this game did really well, and now that we're kind of just like breezing through it, I really like how there was basically 3 villains in this game. There was you had Dagon, you had Bode, and you had Ravis. So all 3 of them kind of had their own reasons why they turned to the dark side, and it just shows how easy it is to turn to the dark side. You know, Dagon had his I feel betrayed and my pride is hurt, I'm going to take out everything. Ravis had his oath that he's like, you know, Dagon bested him, so he's going to work for him. But Bode had the thing you're not supposed to do as a Jedi. You're not supposed to form attachments, and he had an attachment with his daughter and his wife, and that led to him having to work for the Empire to save them while he was being used. And I thought they did that really well.
They did do it really well. There's a lot of fallout from this situation here because basically Bo contacts the Empire and says, "Hey, come to Jeddah. Seer's here. We're gonna go here." And Pete, like, how'd you think about the fake out here when you fight Bo the first time? You're clearly not supposed to win. You get knocked out. You have the respawn. Oh, I get to do this again. And then you wake up. You're playing as Seer.
Yeah, and then freaking Darth Vader comes out of nowhere. I thought that was cool. Playing as Seer was really cool. I know there's history between Seer and Darth Vader, but did you guys see that coming in this game at all?
Not really.
I felt a little convenient to me. Like, oh, we did the Darth Vader fight the first game. Let's do it again.
Well, I can look. They're trying to build up the Jedi records, right? Trying to rebuild that, so I can understand someone trying to do that. Like, but like, it just seemed very, lack of pun, I don't want to be like that, like forced. Like let's just throw Darth Vader in and finish this, and he's gonna go ahead and kill Seer. And like that part it's an epic fight. It's an epic and emotional and impactful scene. It just didn't seem like it fit. It's cool. It's super cool. Loved it. But it's just like, why is he here? We have 3 other enemies. Like, why Darth Vader again? You know?
I think we had to get to the point, though, Nick. I feel my theory this is like they decided early in the process of writing the story game, we're going to kill Seer off here. So, like, Cal has to sort of do this on his own the rest of the way. And I do think they're like, we don't have anyone established here who can really compete with Seer besides Vader. So they're going to just have Bo call the Empire and he shows up.
Yeah, I mean, the Vader reveal in the first one was like, that was insane because unless you saw the trailers, if you saw the trailers for Jedi Fallen Order, they kind of leaked that Darth Vader was going to be in it, which I thought was a terrible move. But I didn't see the trailers, so once Vader shows up, you're like, uh-oh, like this is bad, and like you try to fight him and he wipes the floor with you. So because we had that already in this one, it kind of just felt like, and here's Darth Vader. All right, we're going to fight him now because like who else are we supposed to fight, you know? I feel like you could have had the same impact with Seer. I mean, you had all these, the Empire was marching on Jedi. You could have had her do her force shield to let the Mantis escape and her sacrifice herself that way. You know, you could have done a lot of different ways. I think throwing Vader in there just kind of felt like it was one of the few times this game felt a little too fan servicey. It's like, and here's the Darth Vader battle now. Here you go, you know?
Yeah, Pete, would you have felt better if it was like the Grand Inquisitor showed up instead and he was the one doing this fight?
I would have felt better if it was an Inquisitor. Yeah. At least there's Inquisitor in this game. At least we understand the Inquisitors. We understand they're still around. We understand that they are a part of the game. I am happy that Vader ultimately is the winner because he's supposed to be portrayed as this all-powerful evil dude, right?
Not by much, though. He didn't
Not
win.
by much.
Yeah.
Not by much, but at least they still did that. And that just shows how powerful Seer is, right? So, yeah, fan servicey. It could have been Inquisitor. It could have been, honestly, I don't know. Could have been, what's his name? It could have been Bode. Just throw another fight scene in with him. I mean, you know, they had other options, I think. I don't think they needed Darth Vader. Super cool. Super cool. Just don't think he needed it.
Yeah, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. Vader was the last boss of the first game, correct?
Yeah, because you fight what's her name? The second sister. I forget her name.
Trillis.
Yeah, you fight Trilla, and then you beat her, and then Vader comes in, and the cool thing about that was in that moment, Cal has no idea who Vader is because why would Cal know that? So he's like, "Who's that guy?" And Seer's like, "No, we gotta go." And I'm pretty sure he's the final boss in that. Yeah, so to bring Vader in and have him not be the final boss.
How weird.
Like, is there a rivalry between him and Seer? Like, you know what I mean? Like, was that a thing? If it was, I didn't know.
Maybe Vader has pride where he says, "Oh, like she kicked my ass the last time. I gotta finish out myself here."
Yeah, that actually would track. I mean, that would be a thing Anakin would probably, because at the early stages of Vader, this is still those early stages because this is the Obi-Wan time frame, and I mean, you saw how he reacts when he sees Obi-Wan. He makes mistakes because he's still a lot of Anakin at that point. So I guess it would make sense. He's like, that's the girl that dropped an entire friggin' building on me. Like, I'm going to get her and also take out those Jedi archives at the same times. I guess in that context, it makes sense. There was no lead up to it though. He just the door opens and it's like, "It's me, guys, Darth Vader," like applause, like.
Yeah, can you just imagine wherever Vader's sitting on Mustafar, he's at his desk like reading briefings, he gets the Seer Juna notification, like, "Oh, guys, time to go. I'm out."
Yeah, if you're gonna put Vader in, they should have put a little bit of something else in it. Show a cutscene where make the reveal that Bode's working for the bad guys by him going to Darth Vader and saying to Vader, "Hey, this is where they're at," and then Vader go. That would make more sense to me than him just popping in, no problem.
I felt like shock value this time.
The shock. Look, there's no more shock value to Darth Vader. The only time there was shock value to Darth Vader was if you were watching the original trilogy in the movies and you found out that Vader was Luke's father. Everything else, Vader is this big bad guy trying to kill everyone. Like, you could have had shock factor in the game if Bode went up to Vader and said, "Hey, they're here," and you see that betrayal. That would have been a good turn as well.
We do actually later on we meet Davik too, who we find out is like the ISB guy who's sending Bode on all these things. Like, you could even had a scene of Davik, one of those holocron things, being like, "Lord Vader, guess what? This is the one that did that." And then you wouldn't even have to show Vader. Just show him talking to somebody, hear the breathing, and then you're like, "Oh shit, something's going down." Like, you could have done something like that. The way they just revealed him just felt forced. No pun intended.
Yeah, I also do think it's weird considering that Bode is our final villain of the game, that like we have to deal with Vader, and all of a sudden we're saying, "Oh, Bode is going to be harder for us to beat than Darth Vader is," even though Darth Vader does win the fight.
How spoiled are we? We're like, man, we have to fight Darth Vader again in a video game. Like, how spoiled have we become?
Yeah, not great, but we'll talk about, obviously, this leads to a fallout here because Marin's with them, and Marin joins the crew here. A couple of things happen here throughout the course of this game here. So, Pete, what do you think about this situation here with Cal basically deciding that he is going to form a relationship with Marin throughout the game? Marin, like, I think, kissed him earlier in the game, and there's clearly an attraction to the two of them, and Cal says, "You know what? Like, now is the time. Like, the Jedi were not right about everything. I'm going to embrace this."
I mean, I agree. Their excuse me, their relationship confuses the hell out of me. I remember after the end game, I spoke to her. My character as Cal went up and spoke to her, and he was like, "So what are we?" And she's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Wait a minute, what do you mean you don't know? Like, what do we do from now?" "I don't know. I don't think it's right. We shouldn't." It's like, "But wait a minute, what? We just spent 25 hours of gameplay where you guys are all over each other, and now all of a sudden you automatically don't know." Very confusing end game for me. If they would have just cut that dialogue out when I went to go talk to Marin after everything, I think this would have been a solid point. I feel like they just undid everything with that one dialogue.
Nick, what did you do with the Cal-Marin relationship? How it forms in the game?
So I didn't get that piece of dialogue. I'm glad I didn't, because like, that didn't sour my view on them at all. But I think it's really cool. Like, their first meeting, they're kind of just like a little close, and then one of the more fun action set pieces in the game is when you go through you do Marin's like teleporting thing when you're fighting that big crane thing. And
best mechanic of the game.
Yeah, like you could see that if you want to talk about what we want in the next game, more stuff like that. But they have the embrace, and he's like, "Was that for luck?" And she was like, "No, I just wanted to do that." So like, but I think the biggest thing that Marin contributes to as far as this relationship, which I think the game handles really well, is as you're playing the game and as Cal is seeing more and more of Dagon's visions, Cal's seeing a lot of himself in that, because he's like, we could use, but like, Dagon's kind of right though. We could turn Tanalorr into this whole thing, and Cal. There's hints of him pushing back the dark side, and which we're gonna get to. It comes to a head at some point. And Marin, he confides in Marin. He's like, I see a lot of myself in Dagon. Like, what if I go down that path? What if I turn into somebody like Dagon? And Marin's like, then I'll be here for you to help you. And she does that. She pulls him out of it when he was this close to turning. So I really like what they did with Marin's character a lot, and I like that development in their relationship.
Yeah, we do find out that, like, as Nick mentioned earlier, that the tracker we gave Bode early in the game pays off. We track him to this Imperial station at Nova Garen. We had this confrontation with the ISB who are there, and all these stormtroopers and stuff, and then we get the real. I think you mentioned the Marin mechanic being really cool. In terms of cool game mechanic, the Cal embracing the dark side mechanic, where like phrase the game was like time to slow down, basically when you push both the left and right 3 buttons in the PS5 version. But now you get to the end game, and all of a sudden you can stop time, and like you become like a raging force monster. You just like murder everyone you see here. Like seeing like Cal embrace that darkness in him, Pete, was also very interesting story wise.
Yeah, for sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, his lightsaber color changes to that orange color, correct?
I think it might be just
when we go into that, and maybe it's red, it just maybe looks orange. I think that's pretty cool. Where, I mean, I don't know how you can corrupt a kyber crystal and then come back from it, but it's a cool mechanic at the end of the game. It makes the end of the game easier because it's like one shot, one kill. At least it was for me because I was playing on the easiest mode. I don't know how it was for you guys that were playing on regular modes that one plays on, but I think it was pretty cool. I think they should have fleshed it out a little more. I mean, the gameplay time was not that long when you just do the regular main story. Like I said, for a $70 game, they could have given us a lot longer story and a lot more gameplay that they could have fleshed that out a little bit more, that whole feeling the dark side and doing that kind of stuff, not just like, oh, by the way, do this now use the dark side. It's like, well, wait a minute, hang on, how do we get to this point?
Yeah, Nick, how'd you feel about this part of like Cal basically embracing the darkness?
I thought it was really cool. I don't think you see enough kind of gray Jedi in Star Wars canon, and there's hints of it too. When you guys came on my live stream, and the opening mission when Cal's crew is just getting picked off one by one, there's a sound cue that I recognized because I had just done it, where right when you first embrace the dark side and the game's like, time to embrace it, the same sound cue happens. So it's hinting at it throughout the game. He's feeling too much, and like he embraces it finally. And not enough gray. I don't know if he's necessarily a gray Jedi, but you don't see enough good guys kind of doing what they have to do to survive. And I mean, what better time period than this time period when all Cal has ever done is fight in a war. So I thought it was cool.
Yeah, we'll get to the end game here. Honestly, we finally get to Tanalorr after all this time, and Bode is there with Kata. And then like Bode, like Cal and Mary go to confront him. They basically challenge him and say, "Hey, like you did a wrong thing. Like give you a chance because like we do value your friendship. So like you can turn us down." But like he loses control. Like when he kills his daughter accidentally. So we have this big fight where Cal has to kill Bode at the end of the story. Ends up being responsible for Bode's daughter at that point here. So Pete, did the end of the game like that? Did that work for you? How that all plays out?
I mean, yeah, it sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I hate to be that guy, and it doesn't cheapen it at all. I think they did it well. But it's pretty much the end of Revenge of the Sith, right? Pretty much Anakin almost kills Padme. Anakin does kill Padme, if you want to go down that rabbit hole about what it means and all that kind of stuff. But like someone else has to take care of the kid. It's pretty much that same cookie cutter ending that we saw with Revenge of the Sith. They did it a little bit better, in my opinion, but it was fine. It worked. I think the end game was too quick. I think we should explore Tanalorr a little bit more. Maybe get into a Jedi temple before that all happened. But I'm curious to see what you guys think about that.
Yeah, Nick, you think Tower was a little bit of a wet down? Because I remember when I got this, like, saw it, like, oh, it's gonna be such a big place. So say straight line 5 minutes, you're at the boat fight.
Yeah, it was kind of like I recently played God of War Ragnarok, and when you get to Tanalorr, it was very like it kind of just felt like I was in God of War for a straight line and then the fight. For how hyped up Tanalorr was gonna be, you really don't spend a whole lot of time on it. But I do like the Bode confrontation because Cal tries so hard to, like, he's like, come on, Bode, like, just we can do this. And I think Bode says something, he's like, can you guarantee that my daughter's safe if we do this? And Cal can't answer because Cal even knows he can't do that. And then they continue to fight, and then the final piece is Cal ends up killing Bode with the blaster that Bode gave him. So it's kind of just like literally Bode. I'm not sure it's almost like poetic in a way, you know. It's Cal learned a lot from Bode, and Cal only survived in that moment because he fought Bode, you know. Yeah, have we seen this before? Yeah. You know, but it's I'm curious now what you guys think. Like, Kata is going to be a kind of a big deal moving forward, it seems like. Does she have some force abilities in her? She's on a planet. Like, what do you guys think?
I think we could definitely, like, we'll put a pin in that one, come back to it. I feel like Kata's a big part of whatever the third game ends up being, because like, we're due for another time jump. And I feel like the fact we have like this kid with Cal and Marin, I think is going to be a very important part of the next game.
I'll tell you one thing: if they were smart and Ubisoft talked to, what was it, EA that made Survivor? Was it EA? Were they the main dev team?
I believe so.
So, if they were smart, they would have said, "Hey, new open world game, main character is Kata."
Oh, I mean, that could be cool. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like that would be a nice little correlation. But obviously, they're setting this up for Jedi, you know, still surviving or something. I don't know what the third game is called.
Yeah, we'll get to the third game. Let's talk about some stuff here from the rest of this game here. In terms of Nick, you want to talk about the other big camera? We're talking about Darth Vader. I'll talk about the other one because I can't get this one because my game is glitched and I can't activate bounty hunting.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if you, Pete, I don't know if you did any of like the bounty hunting side quests. No, yeah. You had a time limit. If you do every single bounty, and then eventually, like most bounty hunters, the oh my god, I'm having a brain fart. What's the Australian aliens name?
Age.
Yeah. So eventually she sets you up because all bounty hunters always turn on somebody, and she sets you up, and then friggin' you hear a jetpack coming down, and you're like, wait a second, and friggin' Boba Fett drops in, and Boba Fett's there, and not only is it Boba Fett, but it's Boba Fett voiced by
Tim Morrison.
Yeah, Tim Morrison, and he's there, and then you don't fight Boba Fett. Boba Fett kind of helps you out, and then he's just like, get out of here. And you can stick around and talk to him, and he does like the Boba Fett mannerisms, you know, like pointing with the blaster kind of thing. But I mean, it's cool. You know, you can never get enough Boba Fett these days, right? So.
Yeah, Pete was not like thrilled.
I thought something was wrong with his mic. He looked like he hit into it. You know?
They're gonna cram Boba Fett down our throats because their show didn't go as well as they wanted it to, and I'll leave it at that.
Man, how spoiled are we? We're getting too much Darth Vader and too much Boba Fett.
I'd rather Darth Vader. I'd rather Darth Vader pop out of nowhere in the book of Boba Fett and just cut his head off or something. Just boom and end it like that. But like that was the greatest show ever. I rather that than oh god, whatever. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole.
All right, so Nick, let's maybe here also like what's some of the favorite some of the best like side quests and random characters run into here like what side quest really got your attention in this game?
So I don't know how deep you guys get into the whole garden on the rooftop of the bar, but like I kind of went hard in on that. Once I realized how it works, I started like running around like slashing all these different plants and stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna make a garden. Maybe I play too many farm sims. You know, maybe I played too much Stardew Valley in my life. But I was doing that. I also really liked God, I'm having such a brain fart right now. I like Scuba Stev. I'm a Scuba Stev fan. I just like the character. I don't even care about the fish and seeing them swimming in the tank. I just like Scuba Stev a lot.
Scuba Step is a wild story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Pete, making me more popular, he runs with a space whale at some point.
Sure, but rather the space whale, honestly.
You don't see his video. He says he ran into a space whale in his past.
Right. I still rather the space whale. Gotta be honest, didn't know there was a garden.
Yeah, found the roof of Pyloon Saloon.
Didn't know. Like I said, I'm probably skewed here because of the whole trying to get this done within a time. I think I bought the game when Nick beat the game. Like I feel like I was that far off. So I don't know. I don't have a favorite side quest because I didn't do any of them.
Well, you know, in your defense, the side quests aren't like, they're not as fruitful as like you said, like an Assassin's Creed or like a Horizon game. They're not like, it's not like side stories. It's more like you're on this planet. There's some rumors. Go check it out. That's an excuse to go to this part of the map, and then you come back. You know, so it's not that in depth. It's just more to do.
I think the thing I liked in terms of the side quest was like going through those High Republic chambers, because there's a lot of like the Zelda shrine energy where you're trying to solve the puzzle, like get everything out of the shrines. That was fun.
You got to tell that to Nick. Maybe that'll be what gets him to play, because it is very Zelda shrine like.
Yeah,
I bought Zelda, didn't play it yet because I knew I had to beat Survivor. That's how dedicated I am. I'm making no Hyrule Guys podcast.
Yeah,
no, there should be some copyright infringement here or something, you know.
Yeah, in terms of favorite random character we see in the game, in terms of Nick, anybody in Pyloon Saloon grab your attention?
I mean, I'm a Turgle fan. You know, I want a Turgle T-shirt. I want a Turgle stuffed animal. Turgle's the best. I think Turgle was the comic relief that I think like Jar Jar was supposed to be. You know, like if you have somebody who knows how to write. I mean, I don't want to stir up some Jar Jar debates, but I love Turgle. Turgle's my man. I'll do anything for Turgle.
Yeah, I'll mention in the people in the saloon. I think like the Dana and Grok thing gets pretty dark because I don't know if you ever talked to either of them in the bar. There's a point like they're just like these two treasure hunters or starting to play. All of a sudden, one point Grok's not there. You find out he just gets killed like off screen. You find his body and you're on the planet later on.
That sucks.
There was that blue guy, the guy that was the same race as Thrawn. That guy was kind of a douche though. I didn't really want to talk to him at all.
Oh, the Moran guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a smuggler who's like very like arrogant, like kind of like. I will say the bartender was fun.
Yeah, the bartender was good. Yeah, they kind of turned Pyloon Saloon into like a Cheers kind of vibe. Like you walk in there and it's like, oh, here's my good friends. What have you been up to? You know?
Yeah, and everyone's like, Cal.
Yeah.
His neighborhood celebrity. Yeah, and Pete, we got to talk about Rick the Door Technician, by the way. This is probably the big
my God, I can't believe I forgot that one. Yeah.
Pete, what was your reaction to Rick the Door Technician?
Rick the Door Technician is by far my favorite video game character to ever be developed. I love Rick the Door Technician. I can't tell you. I want like a Funko Pop of him. I want him as my background. Rick the Door Technician is the funniest fucking thing I've seen in Star Wars. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
I know. Were you? I don't know how you guys were at that point. I had no more stims. My health was like non-existent, and I see Rick the Door Technician and the boss meter fill up, and I'm like, oh God. I was like, I gotta just do this. Like, I'm gonna try to see if I can beat this one shot. And he's like, I'll stop you for the Empire. And then I just stabbed him, and I was like, oh, that was it. Okay, cool.
He's the absolute best.
Yeah. So set up for people who may not get that far. I think it's Nick. It's at the Imperial base on Kobo, right? I think like base 80 something or.
Yeah, that's when you're.
Yeah, because you're.
Is that when you're going to get the compass from Ravis? Oh no, that's on the moon.
Yeah. You're going to meet Dagger for the last time.
Right. Okay.
You're passing this Imperial base. You go through this whole fight where you fight like 3 waves of stormtroopers and purge troopers and like all these shock troopers, and like your health gets depleted. You gets to the middle of the base, see Rick the door technician boss. Oh, great! Now he's dead in one slash.
So
Also, the
thought-
door technician of all the things.
I thought this dude was going to be super hard. Like, he was going to be that one boss in the middle that meant nothing to the game that, like, you couldn't get past, right? Because video games have that. The reason why I felt that way is because the Jedi Survivor Instagram page put out stats, and they literally, one of the stats was how many people Rick the door technician killed. And I'm like, what? Who is this guy? Like, is this is this going to be like a huge boss? And then you stab him one time. It's like, how these people died to him? Like, what? Now, I may have it wrong. It may be like how many people killed Rick the door technician. It could be, but when I first saw it, that was my immediate thought. I may have read it wrong at the time.
No, it was people that died at Rick the door
so
technician.
I'm right.
Yeah.
So like, who died to this dude? It was like in the millions. It wasn't even a contest. It was like millions of people were dying to this guy. I was like, this is where I'm gonna quit the game. I'm gonna just be like, I'm gonna go play Zelda. Screw it. I don't want to play this game anymore. And then one shot, one kill. It was great.
It was the greatest joke of all time. It's sort of like if you've ever watched Deadpool 2, he is big time. He is the Peter of this game.
Yeah.
100%.
And unfortunately for Rick Dorfman, he did not get resurrected like Peter did at the end of that movie.
No. I'm trying to think, how does one die to Rick the door technician? You have to be like one hit away, and then maybe you're trying to like parry an attack because you think this is an actual boss and he actually gets the hit on you. Or maybe you're like you're like, oh, I gotta run back, and you accidentally fall. Right? But like there's no way you have full health stims and you lose to Rick the door technician.
Unless you're playing on like super Jedi like master level, maybe.
You know, there is actually a mechanic of the game that we didn't talk about is like you get like the perks that you can add. So you can actually I saw somebody online did it. If you play the game on the hardest level, and then there's a couple of perks you get in New Game Plus that basically make the lightsaber one-shot kill, but then the reverse is you get hit once and you die. So you make the game realistic, you know, like maybe like I could see that, because then if he hits you once, you're done, you know, but I don't know.
That's pretty wild. But let's talk here about like, did you like this better than the first game, Nick?
Yeah, I did. I would say I thought the first game was great. And I think this one took that and brought it to another level with the gameplay, with the storytelling, with the character growth. I mean, the first game, Cal had such good character growth, but everybody else kind of, I mean, Seer a little bit too, but everyone else kind of had their like notes. This one felt like it's almost like the whole ensemble cast had their comeuppance, had their moments to shine, and I think this game did that really well.
Yeah, I would say that I feel that's pretty well here, and we'll talk about the sequel situation here. So, Pete, this character was originally planned to be in a trilogy. We have not gotten confirmation yet about who's going to make the third game, which you assume is going to be made, because this thing isn't selling a ton of copies here. So, what do you think we're expecting with the third game, besides another time jump, which is probably very likely?
I think we see Cal struggle with the dark side of the Force a little bit more. And I think we'll probably hopefully get more of Tanalorr. Maybe this is the setup to the next game. Maybe it's Jedi Tanalorr. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but like I feel like that planet and that plan needs to continue. I don't think we can time jump. I think we need to start right from them trying to get the path there.
Nick, I do think a couple of things to keep in mind is I think Kata's going to play a big role in this game, because assuming you time jumper is probably like a teenager at that point, and Cal has to train her as opposed to like what like Seer trained him. I think that's going to be a fun dynamic for him to sort of teach Kata moves, and maybe it's sort of like a Spider-Man 2 situation with the game coming up where you're going to have play as her and Cal.
Yeah, so I agree with Pete. I think Tanalorr might become the new Kobo. It might become the new hub world. And then the last, so I guess after the game concludes, there's the scene where it's basically a funeral, and you have Seer, Bode, and
Cordova's there.
Cordova, right. Also, man, Cordova got done dirty. Not only did he get shot with the blaster, but then he gets blown up too. Like, oh my god. But the last, so Seer's Force Ghost appears, and she says to Cal, guide her through the darkness. So I'm assuming she's talking about Kata, because like who else would, I mean, Kata lost her entire family. Kata is in a position where it would be very easy for her to just turn on everything. And who else knows with that feeling other than Cal, who lost his mentor, lost his new crew, lost his old family. So I think I think there's going to be an interesting dynamic there, and I think Kata's going to have a potentially a Miles Morales role moving forward, if you will.
Yeah, I do think also, I think the idea of Tantalor is very interesting, Pete, because it is a very convenient canon excuse for, like, why isn't Cal around in the Rebellions is maybe just hanging out in Tantalor and it's out of the galaxy's purview overall. But, like, I would feel like if we're not doing a fourth game, like, I feel the chances, like, I want to see, like, Cal and Marin, like, have, like, a happy ending here, but, like, I feel the odds are high Cal dies.
Yeah. I think you have to end a trilogy. I don't think 4 games is gonna. I think you ended the trilogy. I don't think you should have a 4th game. I rather them not have a happy ending, because if there's a happy ending, that means that Cal is still around. That he's never in canon. He's never around. So why isn't he such a predominant character now in the movies? Excuse me, in the games. So why not add him to shows or anything like that? Just one more thing to add on to Nick's point about the Kata Cal dynamic. There might be some resentment there because Cal kills her father. So there's probably going to be that butting of heads, and maybe more so trying to go to the dark side too, is like, you're going to tell me how to live my life. You're the one that killed my father, kind of thing like that. So just something else to think about, a little food for thought.
Yeah, so I think that's really, I think, about it for the game here. In terms of, like, the game itself, I think the canon point, in terms of how it impacts the canon of Star Wars here, I think the big thing here is, like, I think Tantalor is a big deal for them in terms of, like, a plot device. Is like this is a planet that is very hard to access, and, like, it makes it very easy to, like, take any character, like, especially or Jedi survive Order 66, and say, oh, the path got them here. That's why we didn't see them in the Clone War. We didn't see them in Rebels or the movies. Like, it may some point, oh, people coming back now. The galaxy's quote unquote safer.
Do they ever say in Obi-Wan where the path leads, or did they just introduce the idea of the path?
Just the idea.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, that's maybe the path does lead to Tantalor, you know?
Yeah, and it's very easy in terms of, like, why are we seeing Cal? Oh, he's on Tantalor. Like, he's over there. Like, we can't get to him. We don't have the compass.
It's just, if the path leads to Tantalor, like, you have to, because this game is canon and where it takes place, you have to look at what happens in canon, and why isn't there an army? Why isn't there anything? Like, why isn't there, unless maybe in Ahsoka they'll have something, you know, but, like, right? Like, it almost has to end poorly. It almost has to end, because otherwise, why wasn't Cal and this army of outcasts a part of something, you know?
Yeah, it almost sounds like you're setting up for the Cal fall to the dark side.
Either fall to the dark side, or, but I almost say maybe it gets wiped out. But you don't want to end a trilogy on that sour of a note. You would end this game on a sour note, and the trilogy's the redemption if you're going based on how Star Wars usually does it.
I mean, I think killing Seer is a pretty sour note to have this game end on.
That is true, and not only Seer, like everybody, but Cal and Marin are toast pretty much, and Grease, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure how it ends. I really don't know.
Well, that's a future discussion here, but Pete, Army of Future on the podcast here. We're going to start next week. Ahsoka 101. We're going to do some homework for you guys. A lot of Ahsoka content getting ready for the new show coming out in August here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some podcasts, like a little shorter podcast here, where we go through the Clone Wars, we go through Rebels, we go through the live action. We'll give you a little 101 on what you need to know about Ahsoka here in terms of her history, the character, what could carry forward to the new show. Yeah,
I mean, obviously you can look back on our podcast when we did the Clone Wars and stuff like that, but this is going to be narrowed down to Ahsoka. We're going to talk about her story arcs within Clone Wars, Rebels, I'm assuming too, right, Mike? And we'll get you prepared. We'll get ourselves prepared for Ahsoka to come out on August 23rd.
Yep. So it's gonna be. We'll tell you next week more about this, but I'll give people the viewing order for what we're going to talk about next week. If people want to watch along with us here. So next week we're talking about the Clone Wars movie and these specific episodes from season 1, which is going to be the Malevolence arc, which is episodes 2 through 4 of season 1. The arc where Anakin gets injured is episodes 12 and 13. Episode 19 of season 1. So if you want to watch those episodes, that's what we're talking about next week.
Very excited.
Yeah, and Nick, like we're also going to do some Rebels 101 later on. People catch people up on the basic plot points of Rebels. So I know you're a big Rebels guy. You want to come hang out with us? Then you're more than welcome to.
Absolutely. I also just back to the Ahsoka. This probably is not a hot take at all, but series finale of Clone Wars, like season 7, those last 3 episode arc with Ahsoka. Chef's kiss. Maybe some of the best Star Wars content, period. I'm excited to hear you guys talk about that when you guys get to that point.
Yeah, it's going to be a couple of weeks here, but that's what's coming up next year. Is the first episode of Ahsoka 101, the Clone Wars movie in season 1 of Clone Wars. That's going to be next week. So, Pete, thanks again for coming on here. And I think we'll follow you on Twitter if they want to do that.
At PJ Considori 29.
Nick, thanks for hopping on here. People want to check out your Recovery Room streams. How can they do that?
So go to twitch.tv/the Recovery Room. And then from there, there's links to YouTube where there's archives of the previous games. So if you want to see the full playthrough of Jedi Survivor, you would go to the YouTube page at this point. And links to Twitter, everything else is on there.
Yep, you can also follow me on Twitter, mphillips331. It's MPHILLIPS331. This week over on the Justin and Suffering podcast, a little U.S. Open preview, talks to our PGA Tour guy, Dan DiMartini, plus a little bit of insight from him about the Live merger, so that's on that feed as well. And since Nick Brad is not here right now because he's not going to spoil on the game, so I'll mention here as well. Follow at Sky Guys Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You want to keep up with some of our content over there.
I'm like waiting for Nick to say something.
Yeah, Nick's over busy recording the Hyrule guys.
I gotta go. I gotta catch on that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week to kick off Ahsoka 101. But until then, may the Force be with you.